I think by 2050, something like 80% of houses that we live in are still going to be standing. So the question is not how are we going to make new buildings energy efficient, it's how are we going to make buildings we currently have be more efficient. So that's kind of the market that we're going after. And I think the clear value add is that we can help lower bills.
Would you ever live in a house like this? What if I told you there were no machines powering heating, cooling, or ventilation? There's no chemical waste or fuel, and the only carbon emission is the candlelight for the dinner table. The Dune House, designed by sustainable architecture firm Studio Viral, is a good representation for what the future of homes can look like and is what's commonly referred to as technology living in harmony with nature. While it may seem a bit idealistic right now, the concept forces us to consider how we can develop more sustainable homes for the future. That's why today I'm speaking with the founders from BOLDR, a sustainable heating and cooling company on a mission to lower your energy bill and the impact it has on the environment. Toma, Madi, it's great to have you two today. Why don't you get started by telling us a bit about yourselves, BOLDR, and how it came to be?
Madi and I, we actually met something crazy like 20 years ago. We learned English together in London when we both moved there at the age of 12. We became like best friends and ended up going to university together. And then our careers kind of diverged. So I worked in startup straight out of university, classic story of ups and downs. And then later on, we met up in a IoT company, Madi and I. And Madi had a completely different career path. He worked in like asset management in Switzerland, started up his own company as well. And then we met in another IoT company, and then we spun out to create BOLDR.
And Madi, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what BOLDR is?
Yeah, so as Toma mentioned, my career started in finance in London. I then moved to Switzerland to work for a media company, and then I actually started my own business in out-of-home media. And as Toma mentioned, we actually met up at an IoT company prior to starting BOLDR. And then after that, we spun off to start BOLDR. Now at BOLDR, I'll give you like our vision. So our vision is to empower every single household to reduce their energy consumption and automate energy management while establishing the home as a fully connected DER in this green energy grid. So that's kind of the vision of our company.
So what made you apply to Techstars? How did you hear about us? And then what was the decision to move forward in the program?
Yeah, I mean, I heard of Techstars like way back when I was doing my startup in the past, and I was in kind of the London ecosystem. So we went to a couple of Techstars events. So when we were starting BOLDR, we were maybe like 3-4 months in, and we were looking for that springboard to go forward. So we were like considering a couple of accelerators, and then Techstars was one of them. And then Madi was doing a big pitch in Lithuania, and he kind of got scouted and got asked to join. And then that kind of sealed the deal. And we knew that Techstars was going to be able to help us kind of accelerate very, very fast. And we wanted to basically move really, really quick. We would rather move quick and fail than than not move at all. So we wanted to have that structure in place, which I think Techstars offered us.
Awesome. And Madi, why don't you talk a little bit more about the actual program experience itself? What was it like being in the program in Stockholm with the team, working with the other founders, the mentors? Give me all the details. I want to hear about it.
Sure. No, it was an incredible experience. I don't want to sound like cliche or cheesy, but I think it was like really life-changing for us. I went into it like I knew about Techstars. Well, actually, Toma made me aware of Techstars, and he told me a little bit about it. So we did our research. Obviously, really excited. But we've been through accelerator programs before, and I had very varying experiences. Techstars was incredible. It was like day and night compared to all the other accelerators we've been through in our careers. I think it's just incredible to be part of this community. That is there to help you succeed and build your dream business. So that was really great. And obviously we really leveraged every single moment. We, woke up really early, went to sleep incredibly late. And those 3 months in Stockholm were incredibly intense. So yeah, but we really enjoyed every moment of it.
Yeah, I think also like the mentorship program was like a really big surprise because we like Maddie and I went into it thinking like, okay, the more stakeholders we can get to back us in our like journey, the better. And I think the minute we got there and then we had the mentor madness for 2 weeks, that was a really intense process where like every meeting was pretty much, okay, how can we help you achieve your vision? Tell us about your vision. Let's see like how the network can help you, how I can help you with my experience. And I think that really set the pace for the other 3 months where we managed to like plug into that network and really, really grow. I mean, you of course still have to do the work, but it was definitely a massive help.
So just coming from that statement about the mentorship, what would you say is the most important thing you learned throughout the entire program? Doesn't necessarily need to have been from a mentor. Maybe it could be something that you learned during one of the content sessions or even after the program. But what would you say is the biggest takeaway for you guys?
Toma, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean,
You can start all.
for me, I think it's again like maybe a bit cheesy, but it's like ask for help and ask questions. I think founders often think that they need to carry the full load and execute on all these things. And yes, they have to execute, but if you go out, you like ask questions and you get other people to get interested in your story, people are like very happy to help you. And I think that's one thing that we didn't do enough before Techstars and which we do now constantly, like all the way from our business development all the way to fundraising. That's like something we, I think, implemented firmly.
So the way I see it as Techstars is this: if your business is your home, then Techstars helps you lay the foundation, right? It gives you the resources, access to networks, investors, access to capital. It gives you the mentorship, access to this community that helps you build. But in the end, even though it's an incredibly intensive program, and it is Techstars for life, so you have all these resources for life, you still, the burden of building that business still falls on you. You have to, as a founder, leverage everything that Techstars gives you to the best of your ability to continue growing your business. And actually, because it's such an intensive program for the 3 months that you're there, it's really easy to fall in that frame of mind that you're graduating. You can relax at the end of this program. You can take a breather, go on holiday. You deserve it. But I think that's a really big mistake. Actually, we found that you really have to try and keep up the intensity as much as possible because actually it's just you're graduating, but it's just the beginning. That's just the foundation. You have to build the rest of the house, right? So yeah, that's just my takeaways from it. Is that yes, you're given all the tools, but you need to really go out and build.
Yeah, and I think that those are two great points. The first being give it your all while you're in the program. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think a lot of founders go into the program wanting to do it themselves, wanting to build it themselves. But I think it's pretty quick to open your eyes that asking for help is actually huge. And all those mentors are there for a reason. And you should ask them questions because they're the knowledge experts and they have the information that you need, or at least can guide you in the right direction. And then, like you said, that post-program intensity is really important too. And I want to touch on something. Sorry for the background noise. There are some trucks passing by my apartment right now in Manhattan, but I want to dig a little bit deeper into what you were touching on, Toma, the fundraising. Can you tell me more about that process? What's it been like since you graduated the program, the fundraising, the capital, everything about that?
Yeah. Well, I think being in the program, again, Maddie mentioned, gave us tools and a framework, but you have to go out and do it yourself. So we pretty much right after the program started implementing our fundraising strategy. We have been, I think, fundraising now for about a month and a half too. And I think we sent something crazy, like over 200 emails, had like 4 or 5 meetings a day.
Plus the 300 emails.
Yeah. So a lot of like cold outreach, a lot of like network outreach. But I think now we're in a position where we've like are 50% committed with a lead in place. It was actually someone from like the wider Techstars network who we approached for investment, and we weren't the right fit at the right time. So they put us in touch with another investor. So our lead investor now is a VC made up of like ex-Tesla, SpaceX engineers that support hardware, software companies, climate tech, and space tech mostly. So it was kind of like a perfect fit for us. And so yeah, we're 50% committed on that now. And then we have a couple of like conversations in the pipeline going to close out the round and final due diligence. But also,
I will say this is that
yeah,
a big part of those really late stage discussions that we're having right now, including the lead, as Toma mentioned, did come from the Techstars network or it came through a Techstars introduction. So, so yeah, Techstars has been hugely helpful. But again, we did ask for help. We spoke to the
yeah,
Techstars
yeah. I
fundraising
think
teams. Go ahead, Toma. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say like the fundraising team is something that you definitely want to leverage, because like, and what kind of struck me is like most of them are previous founders that have been there, done that, and they have like their processes that they've established, which were like super helpful just to see, you know. And then their like obvious network is great as well. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
So
Yeah.
2 questions just from one. Well, actually, first of all, I'm glad to hear that the fundraising is going well and that you're at that 50% commitment. I know that you mentioned you're raising like a pre-seed round right now. So I wish you the best of luck moving forward. And it seems like things are going pretty well. So I hope they continue on that track. But the questions that I do have are, first, can you give us a little bit of insight on what those like fundraising tips are? Like, you leverage the fundraising team, but what specifically were some pieces of advice that they gave you? And then after that, can you address, you mentioned that you reached out to a potential fundraising partner. They said it wasn't, the right time or the right fit at the time, maybe in the future. Can you address how founders might deal with the no's of the fundraising process? Because I think that's obviously something that's super common.
Yeah,
And I think any founder that is going through the process of fundraising is going to run into a handful of no's, likely more no's than yeses. Can you share some light on how you showed resiliency during that process too?
yeah. I mean, I think on the nose, if you look at the fundraising process, it's like one long job interview, where I think that's what most people can relate to. It's like one long job interview that happens every day, and you get a constant rejection. So you just have to keep your eye on the prize and just keep moving forward. And it's often not a reflection of your company or your work that you've done. Oftentimes it's not the right thing at the right time for the investors. But I think on some of the tips that I think actually helped us start like to get higher conversions, I think this is where both the initial Techstars program was useful, but then also the Techstars investment team is like getting your forwardables right, condensing your thoughts very clearly, and communicating those like key KPIs and like drivers forward, while still creating like a very easy to understand idea of what your company does. And I think that was a big takeaway. And then I think on the question you asked, like what was very helpful, I think once we started speaking to the Techstars investment team, we realized how bad our data room was, and seeing some like examples or where we can make improvements. And I think that was really, really helpful in actually
And
building out.
I think it's
Yeah.
also really important to try and convert these no's into something positive as well.
Yes.
So for every single investor that says no to us, we will ask them to put us in touch with somebody they feel like would say yes. Not in those words, but in that kind of meaning. And so the lead investor that came through to us was basically was I kind of came through that strategy, is because at that time that investor just didn't have it was just not the right fit at the time, and they put us in touch with somebody else that was a better fit.
That's great to hear. I'm glad you're asking for those introductions post the fact of, a temporary lack of commitment. Just keeps the door open a little bit. So,
And also I think it's important to ask for feedback as to why you got the no.
yeah,
It's
definitely.
like
It's similar to an
very
interview.
insightful. Yeah, exactly.
Like if you don't get a job, I think it's pretty instinctual to sort of want to understand why. I think it's a similar situation here.
Yep.
Yeah. Great analogy, job interview. Really, really great analogy, that one.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So let's change up gears a little bit. So at Techstars, we really want founders to learn how to be successful business people, but also create, sustainable business. Obviously, your focus is of the sustainable impact oriented concept. Can you talk about how to build a company that incorporates those sustainability points?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, I think it comes down to like primary motivation. I think it's very difficult to justify to yourself. Like if just money motivates you and you want to just create profits, it's not great. And I think if you look at sustainability and challenges that it poses, it's the same kind of approach you have to as to problem solving. So for us, like sustainability is a thing that we are interested in. It's a problem that we're looking to solve. I think that's the core of our company. I think when, Madi mentioned the vision around empowering the home to be able to balance the grid, that's what we're striving to do. So if you can do some good and also do good business, then that's a great thing to do. But I think also as European founders, you're also kind of restricted in the amount of capital you raise. And capital's not been as cheap. There's a lot less patience from investors. So I think it breeds like a little bit of a different type of founder, which is a good thing and a bad thing. But for us, it's very important to try to be profitable from day one and try to build like sustainable business in that sense. So sustainable in terms of like revenues and building a strong foundation, and then looking to really kind of scale and grow that business where we make good learnings. So yeah.
Howdy, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about sustainability, that's kind of okay. So I guess there's two types of sustainability. There's sustainability in terms of the cash flow and profitability from day one, which is something that we've been trying to build and have successfully been doing from day one of trading. We had our unit economics, so solid unit economics. We knew how to enter the market. We knew how to scale we started with D2C, so how to scale our D2C. But if we're talking about sustainability as a whole, as in climate impact, then that's where kind of for us, that was the source of the business. That was kind of the very core of the business. We saw that the energy grid is rapidly changing. There is a growing influx of renewable assets, energy storage, gas was being phased out in favor of sustainable electric solutions, and all of that presented huge infrastructural challenges which we're facing and need to solve. But also for companies like ours, it was a kind of presenting a range of opportunities to be at the forefront of this green transition. So I guess sustainability is at the very core of BOLDR and where we're headed as a company. If that's answers the question.
How can consumers produce more sustainable home emissions? In particular, if you want to touch on like how can BOLDR help consumers produce more sustainable home emissions with some of your products and your offerings?
So in my opinion, perhaps the most impactful, and it's one of the reasons we started the business, is because we noticed that home heating and cooling, so home climate, accounts for up to 70% of the total household energy bill. So if you want to reduce your household carbon footprint, you need to tackle that first, in my opinion, right? So that's either through increasing the energy efficiency of your homes, through insulation, through installing renewables like solar panels, but also through using smart IoT connected products in heating and cooling, such as BOLDR products, that help you reduce energy consumption, automate energy management, and kind of improve and boost your convenience at the same time.
So you mentioned that BOLDR products. Talk to me about what specifically those are, because I don't think we've really even gotten into that yet.
So, Toma, do you want to do an introduction to Klima? I'm holding in my hand right here.
You can introduce Klima, but I mean, for us, we're kind of a blend of a hardware and a software company, and hardware is our Trojan horse, which we entered the home with. We think that, if you can place connected devices in the home, you'll have a better chance of balancing the grid in the long run. And this is why we place easy to install, kind of very nice looking hardware, if I say so myself. And then we connect that to our software and that software platform to energy retailers. But I think for the moment, what we have is Kelvin, which is like our flagship product. It's an infrared electric heater, it's DIY install. You don't have to wait for 3 months for an installer to come to your house, put it up on the wall. You can do it yourself or without a qualified electrician. And then we kind of manage all the maintenance is done online via firmware update or software update. So that's been our flagship product. And now we're launching a new product, which is Klima, which is what we're really excited about. I think what Klima does is it basically turns your existing air conditioners and heat pumps that are analog, and it turns them into smart home devices. And so for like under $120, you can connect your existing AC and turn it into a smart home device without any installation costs, without any wiring. And I think the reason why Maddie and I were so excited about the product was that there's over 2 billion air conditioners in the market. And I think the environmental cost of actually upgrading all of those and switching them over to be smart home enabled so they can be connected to the grid is huge. Of course, it's a dollar cost as well, but I think the environmental cost is enormous. So that's why we're excited to find like a retrofit solution that can kind of very easily plug into your home and give you control over your heating and cooling.
Yeah. 2 billion air conditioners today will be over 5 billion air conditioners and heat pumps in the next 10, 15 years. Huge drain on the energy grid. And for $120, you get a beautiful looking device that connects to it wirelessly. 2-minute installation and gives it a new life. With a whole host of features that reduce your energy consumption, boost convenience, and just improve your whole experience.
Yep.
So there's a massive addressable market. Totally makes sense why you're approaching it the way that you are. But I want to understand a little bit better, how do your products and services funnel into both your short-term and the long-term vision of BOLDR? Because I know that, in our brief conversations, you've talked about how this is all sort of leading to a longer-term vision. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, we, because we are a European company, we have to kind of grow step by step. And also because we wanted to execute on a slightly different strategy. So we initially started our company with unit sales as a business model. So that's literally just putting connected devices into people's homes that serve a clear function and that people love. We're now kind of transitioning more towards a service business model. So we're monetizing our users, releasing premium paid features. We're opening up our platform to, let's say, other heating and cooling manufacturers. And in the long run, we're looking to build this energy management platform that expands beyond just home climate and actually connects up, home batteries, EV and solar, and actually connects them directly through APIs to the energy companies. So really the end goal is to establish the home as a fully managed DER in the grid. And the starting point where we are now has been fantastic because we've managed to get quite a lot of traction, and that traction is actually allowing us to quickly then expand and grow our B2B relationships that we need to have in order to move towards a platform business model in the next year and a half.
Yeah, on the traction, I think, we've only started trading in September, but we've already placed over 3,000, so thousands of products in people's homes across North America and Europe. And, people really love our products. We have great ratings, something like 4.7 stars across all the different platforms that we trade across.
So how is it different from like a Nest, for example?
Sure. I mean, I
it's a good
think
question.
I think the Kelvin heater itself serves a primary function of actually heating you, right? And being easy to install, etc. But I think Klima, the new product that's coming out, probably has more similarities to the Nest, right? So
Yes.
yeah, I think a key differentiator for us between the Nest and the Klima is that we're going after control of different products. So if you look at specific types of ACs like air-to-air heat pumps or traditional air conditioners that are like wall units, in order to actually be able to control that with the Nest, you have to go out, order a special kind of part from Alibaba and like wire it yourself. And then it has this IR transmitter, which we kind of have straight out of the box. So it's a slightly different market that we're going after. Also, there's no wiring with our product. So you don't need to like wire everything in. So it's a plug and play thing. But really beyond what Nest does with the thermostat itself is that this hardware is kind of like another tool in our toolbox that allows us to connect to a specific type of device and then gets managed through our platform and eventually connects to the energy companies as part of our grander vision. So I would say that's like the key differentiator at this point.
Got it. And that makes sense. I mean, who wants to wire their own AC units to get them working in all together? That makes sense. So what areas or who or what demographics do you feel will be the most impacted by this?
Sure. So I think really for us, it's kind of split into two. The customers, so people who we can help lower their bills and automate the energy consumption. And this is all the way from people that are looking to retrofit their existing home. I think by 2050, something like 80% of houses that we live in are still going to be standing. So the question is not how are we going to make new buildings energy efficient? It's how are we going to make buildings we currently have be more efficient? So that's kind of the market that we're going after. And I think the clear value add is that we can help lower bills, which is hugely important to any consumer. And then the second part of that is, I think the infrastructure or the grid, I think has to be impacted. I think when we look at the future kind of drain on the grid with more and more electric devices being deployed and more demand for electricity being pushed out, the need to balance the grid to make the growing demand of energy more efficient is huge. And I think this is where BOLDR sits and where we're looking to make an impact.
So what do you feel beyond that are some of the most addressable problems in like the impact energy sustainability ecosystem today?
Yeah, it's a tough question, but I think for us, we were really interested in the interaction between the home and the grid. So I think at the moment we have quite a bit less control over the devices and what new technologies are being added because they're not connected to the grid. So a lot of IoT at the moment is kind of like, I would say, a little bit gimmicky, turn lights on, turn lights off. But really how all those connected devices function on a home level and how that home interacts with the grid, I think that is where the most interesting things are going to be happening.
And Madi, what do you think? What does the future of the home look like? 10, 20 years down the line, are people going to be living the same way that they're living now in terms of the buildings or the infrastructure, the architecture that people live in? Or do you think it's going to change up a little to be more sustainable, more energy efficient, better for the environment?
Yeah, I think there's a huge push right now for a more sustainable home, for a more sustainable grid. There's a huge influx of renewable assets in the grid right now. And as I mentioned before, gas is being phased out in favor of sustainable electric solutions. So I think the home heating and cooling market, and that's going to be vastly different. So it's a large market. It is as it is right now, kind of electric home heating and cooling, but it will be vastly bigger. So we're kind of at the very beginning of that growth trajectory. Now, in terms of the home, yeah, I think the home is going to be a lot more connected to the grid. I think and that's what we're kind of working towards with Toma. at BOLDR. We're working towards a more connected home, not just as a home, but on a device level, on a room by room basis, and with a lot more granular data that can feed to the energy companies to make, impactful decisions for the grid. And I think that's where the home is headed, is to be a lot more connected to the grid, a lot more energy efficient. And
I think
I think
also
there's a lot
on
of
a
kind of
fundamental level of like
over.
who lives in those homes, I think in the future we're seeing a consumer that's more eco conscious and more kind of driven towards sustainability and conscious of the choices that they make. And I think that's going to be reflected in the materials that we choose to have our houses built in, the demand that we put on landlords and house builders in order to make the houses be connected and more eco-friendly. And I think ultimately this is where a whole new economy is going to be born. So I think we want to be at the front of that. And probably it's already been born. I think it's growing up. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm glad to hear that you all are optimistic about the future of the home. It seems pretty dang cool, honestly. I feel like I'm picturing like a little bit of a sci-fi futuristic aspect, everything like the things interactive and connected to each other and like talking to me, maybe telling me to turn my air conditioning down or something like that.
I think to a certain degree, yes. But I think the challenge is huge. I think I mentioned the statistic earlier, 80% of all buildings by 2050 are the same. I think it's a big thing will come down to retrofit. And
Mhm.
I think it's going to be pretty incredible what we will be able to achieve
But
inside of
Toma,
things.
actually, now that Dylan mentioned all the devices talking to each other, that is actually, a big part of the change in the smart home industry is
Yeah.
that people are really starting to build products on this Madi protocol, which allows for inter-product, inter-platform communication. So I think that is the future, really. You will have devices being able to communicate across platforms and devices.
Yeah, and we're super. It's just launching now, so we're building all of our products on Matter, which I think is kind of exciting and cool because you're part of a community that's trying to make a new protocol kind of come to life. So a lot of fun.
Definitely. So I've got just one last question for you too. And I think it's a unique one because we've sort of spoken about the difference between hardware and software. It seems like you guys have a little bit of a bilateral approach. For all the founders that are sort of stuck between hardware versus software, or maybe both, like how do you make your product and services seem sexy? Because I think, BOLDR is in a unique situation where you have these heating and cooling devices, but you also have the app that you're working to service all of these heating and cooling
Yeah.
devices. How do you make it seem sexy? How do you make people want to buy it? What do you have to say to other founders that are building in a similar space?
Well, I mean, what do you mean by seem sexy? I mean, they are sexy. Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. I think for us, I mean, there's not pretty good answer, but I think keys to have a simple formula. We just try to design products that people would actually want to buy and put into their home. Like the home is a very, very intimate place. And when you're designing something, you have to be very conscious of that. These people have to put this product in their home. It has to hang in that home or it has to be in as part of that home. And I think that's like a tough thing to do. But I think simplicity usually is the formula. And I think, ultimately, I think like form needs to leave function. So you have to make something that's actually functional and easy to use. And I think that usually does it.
But also, Dylan, we're operating in this industry that is kind of heating and cooling at the start, right?
Yeah.
And it's like notoriously boring. And, it's quite easy to, it's not gonna, win you any brownie points at a party or anything like that. And that's why it's quite, it's quite easy to shake up this industry from like a design perspective and we really like that our customers have this kind of emotional connection with the products. They want to display them rather than hide them away. And in Europe, especially, you kind of inherit your heating, and it's something that you usually hide away rather than display. So, we build like design forward products that people want to display it rather than hide away. Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. I mean, I've taken a look at your product line, and they are pretty sexy looking, very minimalistic, clean. I would not mind displaying that in my house. And I think another thing that's really sexy that you two didn't mention is just lowering your energy bill. It's one of the sexiest things you can offer. It's
A
like
huge search term. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a huge search term right now. Obviously, the energy crisis worldwide is really pushing people to care about their energy bills, and it's one of the reasons that we've had a really successful start to our trading. People are really after energy saving products right now.
awesome. Well, I really appreciate Toma, Madi, you guys coming in today. I wish you the best of luck in the rest of your fundraising, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks everyone for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more stories from the Techstars Network, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our other social media. If you're a founder looking to 10x your startup, do not hesitate to visit our website to apply to a program today. And most importantly, always remember, give first.